what we're doing, what today signifies. We'll hear from a few of the petitioners who were also on the case, and they'll share their thoughts, and then we'll call it a night. So in 2002, there was a plan to, this used to be Waterside Mall. So in 2002, a group of developers came by and they said, or they proposed to knock down Waterside Mall and make 4th Street a through street. So then, as part of that development, there would be 6 buildings, 3 on the west side and 3 on the east side, and it was supposed to be completed in 2009. That's when all of this was supposed to be done. There was supposed to be a bunch of commercial businesses, neighborhood serving retail, a mix of residential as well. So yeah, that was the plan. It was supposed to be finished in 2009. So parts of it have finished. As we have the DC government buildings, we have the Elliott waterfront station, which is a lot that's north of CVS. That's also in the plans for being developed. And then we have these 2 lots. So in 2017, Forest City, who formerly owned this, they requested to get the zoning change from commercial to residential. Once they filed to switch that started the PUD process, and that's also when I learned about this. So I live right across the street, and so I learned about this, and I had frequented the Friday night markets a lot, and I heard about it, and I was already concerned about skyrocketing housing costs in DC. And so when I heard that it was going to happen right across from me, and it was replacing a community space that I felt was important, I got involved. So today, a group of petitioners, there's 6 of us, we filed a petition for review saying that we wanted the Court of Appeals to review the Zoning Commission's approval of the order, and today is the day that brief is due. So today is kind of like the last day that we can submit or show our public disapproval of the project. So that's just like a brief overview. I'm going to let some of the petitioners talk about why they got involved or whatever they learned about, and then we'll take it from there. So first up is Adone Cooper.
So true to millennium form, my statement's on my phone. Alright, so I read this report that was released earlier this year in March by the National Committee on Reinvestment Coalition. And from 2000 to 2013, they looked at the entire continental United States for gentrification, and DC is the most gentrified city in the country. And they specifically listed Southwest as the most gentrified neighborhood. So right now, you're standing in the most gentrified neighborhood in the most gentrified city in the entire country. And so, gentrification is a powerful force for economic change, and in our cities, but it's often accompanied by extreme and unnecessary cultural displacement. So while gentrification increases the values of properties in areas that suffered from prolonged disinvestment, it also results in rising rents, home and property values. As these costs reduce the supply of affordable housing, existing residents who are often Black and Hispanic are displaced. This prevents them from benefiting from the economic growth that occurs and greater availability of services that come with the increased investment in the community. Gentrification also presents a challenge to communities that are trying to achieve economic revitalization without disruption that comes with said displacement. So I did a little research on the background of the term gentrification. It was coined by a British sociologist named Ruth Glass in 1964 to describe displacement of working class residents of London in neighborhoods meant for middle class workers to come in and for low income workers to be pushed out. So from its inception, gentrification has been understood as a form of neighborhood change resulting in displacement of incumbent residents of one social class and culture by another for more affluent residents, leading to, as I said before, increase in property value. So while gentrification implicitly involves economic transition to a more affluent class that replaces the incumbent residents, just like here in Southwest, researchers have also noted that there are cultural and racial dimensions to this form of neighborhood change. So as it's now 2019, a lot of millennials moving to the city, and sort of the desirability of neighborhoods has changed. Now, a lot of neighborhoods that were not considered desirable are now cool and edgy. And that doesn't mean that, that doesn't mean that now that these places where people have lived for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, now they get brand new buildings, but there aren't really any amenities for incumbents and residents who've been here for a very long time. So, new residents might feel a shift in the community's focus of concern for dynamics of political power, which includes, middle class workers coming into the city, wanting new places to live, and that pushes out people who've been here for a very long time. So, as Chloe said, we filed this brief to kind of, take a stand to preserve Southwest, one, and then two, provide for more equitable and sustainable development. We're not against development, we're just against development that's not sustainable and equitable. So that's why I decided to become part of this.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so next up is going to be my wife, Pamela McKinney.
Hi, thanks for coming. You'll see, if you already saw this, we've laid out some issues about the project that we have as well as what the project entails. So part of it is that there have been 12 years of delays that we didn't cause. So we have been targeted, people have said stuff that we're the ones causing the delay because we are following the law and we legally have the right to appeal this decision to the zoning commission. But what people seem to not care that much about is the fact that the developer filed 3 times to delay this project, which amounted to 12 years of delays. In those 12 years, Southwest has changed a lot. This originally was supposed to be an office building, and now they want it to be a residential building with 600 units, only 11% affordable in a city that has Adomi and Coy both mentioned, the highest gentrification in the country. Of those units, 5 will be 3 bedrooms of 600, so less than 10%. Will be 3 bedrooms, so families, what we would consider true family-sized units, and those are affordable at area median income of 60% of the area median income. However, if you look at actual data within the District of Columbia, white households make 3 times the amount of money that black households do. So we find it to be inherently racist. Another issue for us is the loss of open space. This is one of the few spaces in Southwest where we can meet together as a community. It's actually where we've met a lot of our friends and been able to bond with them. Because we all live in tiny apartments and we can't fit more than a few people in those spaces. It's also one of our, outside of Safeway, the only place we can get fresh food, organic, and support local businesses. At the farmers market and the Friday night market, those are truly local businesses and vendors here that we don't have in Southwest. So those are some of my main concerns.
Who are you?
My name is Pam McKinney.
And what is your role in this?
I'm one of the pro se petitioners, so I'm also appealing the case. And I work at a school. That's my job.
So I'll clean up. So again, my name is Coy McKinney. I'm part of the group of petitioners who filed the brief. And yeah, so this is, I got involved mainly because I was concerned about the loss of this space, and I have been also concerned about gentrification as well. So what I learned the most, or what I thought was the most interesting about this whole process, is that we hear from the mayor, council members, the Southwest Plan, the DC Comprehensive Plan, they all talk about how displacement should be avoided. Yet, as the Dome talked about, we've had the most extreme case of gentrification displacement. So there's clearly a mismatch. And so, and we're in the middle of an affordable housing crisis. So my understanding of how we get out of a crisis is by bold action, okay? This project does not represent bold action. In the Southwest Plan, which was drafted, or it was approved in 2015, Southwest residents overwhelmingly said that socioeconomic diversity was important to them. They wanted inclusive development. They wanted more family-sized units. They want to maintain what Southwest residents think is important. And since then, we haven't seen that. We've seen a plethora of luxury, majority market rate buildings come to the neighborhood. We've seen studios that we barely have any 3-bedroom units, okay? And so in this case, I found that one of the reasons that this is occurring is based off of the way the zoning commission makes their orders. So we learned that the developer for city, they rely on a 2013 document called Bridges to Opportunity. In that document, they say that market rate housing is not having an effect on gentrification and displacement. I feel like just the average person knows that that's not true. If you have a median, so for example in Southwest, the median rent used to be $1,600. Now you have these new 1-bedrooms that start at $2,000. So slowly each project is increasing the cost of housing. And another interesting point, and then this is what I'll close on, is at the public hearing, the chairman of the zoning commission, Anthony Hood, he shared his observation that the more housing we get, the more the price goes up. Those were his own words. So he sees what we're seeing, but there's still no action. There's still a mismatch between them. So what I'm asking for is for the council members, Charles Allen, the mayor, zoning commission, we need bold action. This is an opportunity to take bold action if that's what we want in Southwest. So I guess we can take some questions if you guys have any. We'll be around, but I just want to thank you guys again for braving this crappy weather.
It's crappy. It's very, very crappy.
It's very crappy.
Well, we're still in an open
So like
space
the
where we can
project.
gather, and that's it.
So yes, so we got
Well, I think a point to bring up too was this land was originally city land that was sold off to the original developer for
Oh, what was it $10?
$10.
Yeah, $10 for each
the city gave
lot.
away this land in order to get it developed.
And just for perspective, the land where the wharf is was given away for $1. The entire plot.
So we got $9 more for this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. They tried a little harder.
Yeah.
What will happen to this piece of land?
That's a good question. So this is supposed to be, there's going to be 2 buildings on this side and that side. There's going to be a total of about 600 units. I believe, what do we say, 11% of those are going to be affordable. They're going to have, the east building is going to have a community center. So when you have a PUD, a planned unit development, you have to have a public benefit. And so the public benefit for this one was a community center. Now, normally community centers are great. Positive. However, in this case, in our meetings with the developer, they told us that more affordable housing could have been included in the project if it wasn't for the community center. That's one thing. The
They
second
traded.
Pitting it.
Yeah.
They gave
Yes.
a community center instead of affordable housing.
We're also getting a new library right around the corner, so it's not.
So that goes to the second point, is that Southwest is the smallest quadrant in the city, and yet we have plenty of spaces where people can meet. We have the Randall Recreation Center, we have Greenlee, we have a new library that's going to be opening, we have multiple churches that have spaces that we can use. So the weight of a community center versus affordable housing, to me, that's not the proper balance. So that's
Yeah,
another
I'd
part
like to
of
see
this.
the community needs study that said we needed a community
Right.
center.
Right.
I mean,
So you don't want a community center, you
most
want
community
affordable
centers do
housing
charge an additional
and
fee.
open space.
I mean, everyone's
Yes.
a little different. I don't.
Ideally, yes. So I think a prudent developer would recognize how vibrant this space has become to the community, and they would incorporate that into their design. This is downtown Southwest. Like Fridays and Saturdays during the spring and summer, this is the happening spot. So you would think if the developer's just thinking about dollar signs, they can still use that. They can still work around that. They can actually incorporate that into the design. So that's one.
So you want this to remain open space?
Or at least a piece of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe not the entire lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and the way I read the designs, it seems like any outdoor space is being put up 1 story up. So you have to have access to the building
To have
to
access.
access this outdoor space. So they claim, oh, we're still going to have outdoor space, but it's only
It would
granted.
really be for the residents of the building.
Right. So they take our public land and they privatize it just for the residents that are in these buildings.
But
and take
claim
away-
it as public.
And I want to underscore what Coy is saying too, because at this point in the game, we have to challenge the zoning commission's decision based on the legal framework that we're working with. And so basically what we're saying is that the zoning commission's failure to consider the activation of this lot in particular with regard to current public benefits and amenities was an error in judgment, and it should be sent back to the zoning commission. So all the arguments that you're making today, that these are arguments that we hope that the court will find legally persuasive.
So the end result would be, hopefully, it would go back to the planning commission for
Zoning
reconsideration,
commission.
at which time the community could speak.
Exactly.
Have you talked to your elected officials?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
And who have you talked to and what have they said?
I won't disclose to you. I'm not an official petitioner, but I'm happy to support my neighbors here in writing and advocacy. I will not disclose the names, but I think that many of them feel that it is a done deal. It is not. Should not have gotten approval, and we explain in our case why. The Berry Farm case, which is a recent case, says you have to consider public benefits. I mean, this really, once the site was activated with the arts market on Friday, with the farmers market on Saturday, not to mention the special event, that happened to coincide also with the Southwest Plan. I mean, the fact that you didn't have any consideration of that, we think is a major reason why this will be sent back to the Zoning Commission.
So you have put these points to your elected officials?
Yes, I've discussed with him informally. Yes.
And why won't you tell us what the public official will say?
One, I'm friends with him. I don't want to put them on the spot, and it's
Why
not
not?
really about them. It's really about getting this thing back to the
Chris,
Zoning
can I
Commission.
say something? Also, the ANC's already put out a list to gather the people to get input on the community center that's not here. They've already said it's coming soon. We would like the community input on it. So they've already kind of
Committed to the
committed to the fact that there's a community center coming.
Oh, so the ANC is against you?
They're for the development.
approved the
Yes, they
project,
already approved
so-
it.
That's one set
And
of
that was
elected
the
officials.
community center came about from ANC pushing for it. So that was like what the ANC did, and they also pushed for more affordable housing.
In fact, I believe one ANC commissioner was against the project before the community center was a part of the plan. And once that went in, his position.
So you're giving up on the ANC?
Well, at this point, they're not involved.
Yeah, it's about the zoning. We're challenging the Zoning Commission.
What about the other elected officials?
At this point, it's about the Zoning Commission
Yeah,
proving to the court that the Zoning Commission erred in some important legal aspect.
If the court sides with us, then it would be time to go back to the ANC and the public officials to start the conversation over again. But right now, it's an approved plan.
I mean, part
What
of
considerations have been made about traffic and density of traffic
they're ignoring it all.
and lack of
There was a traffic study done maybe in
amenities here?
2008 or 7 that a lot of the developers have relied on. And that was before
Yeah.
Wharf, before Audi Field, and I think it was around the same time that Nats Park was built. So we need a new traffic study that's been dealing with, the fact that we have scooters and bike share now. We have, Uber and Lyft is around. None of that is, I've never seen anything that's incorporated all of that into the things that are built down here.
As far as I'm concerned, this is a circus here all the time. It's accidents waiting to happen.
Quite a few pedestrians hit.
It's really
I mean, we have trouble with the no left turn here on here at 4th and M.
Oh, that's
That's been going on for a long time. It's still an issue. So that's on our mind, yes, but there hasn't been anything done about traffic as far as someone else can do traffic.
And that's
but-
something the ANC has brought up time and time again as well about the need for a traffic study.
Is there
Buzzard Point? Do we know anything about Buzzard Point?
So to my knowledge, Buzzard Point is by right.
Yeah.
So what that means is that it doesn't have to go through the public or
It wasn't public
it doesn't have to
land.
go through the PUD process. So then the PUD process requires a public benefit. If there's no PUD process, then there doesn't have to be a public benefit. That's my understanding.
My name's Chris. I've been helping a little bit with this, but one of the things that I've noticed, because I help groups around the city file these appeals, and unfortunately sometimes what happens is we're just praying for the court to save us, but it's imperative that the community continue to keep the pressure on the elected officials, just in terms of what Bill is saying, because right now the mayor is saying rhetoric like we need to build an inclusive, equitable city. But yet when it comes to the rubber hitting the road, with this project, with the Fannie Mae project in Ward 3, with the Union Market projects, with Brooklyn Manor, these are unequitable projects. These are projects that have maybe 8 to 12% affordable studios for people making $65,000 a year. So the rhetoric is a mismatch, as Corey was saying. And so that's what this lawsuit, what these petitioners have given you all is a platform to go to your elected officials and say, the reason why we have to appeal this is because it doesn't meet your rhetoric. Your rhetoric right now is we want an inclusive, successful, equitable city. But all of the projects being approved by the Office of Planning first, not just the zoning commission, they're just a rubber stamp. They're all appointed by the mayor, by the way, except for 2 who are appointed by the president of the United States of America. But because we're not a state. But anyway, the point is that the zoning commission ultimately is just a rubber stamp. These things can be stopped by the elected officials if we wanted them to say, live up to your rhetoric and make sure half of these units are affordable.
But I would argue it's not just rhetoric. It is written. It is written into the comp plan. It is written into Southwest is also under the Anacostia Waterfront Initiative. That's what's behind the wharf and the build-up in Navy Yard. And basically that may be considered part and parcel with the comp plan because the comp plan says to implement the Anacostia Waterfront Initiative, which came in the early 2000s and has sort of taken a long road. And so Southwest operates really kind of under both the comp plan as we know the comp plan, but also the Anacostia Waterfront Initiative. Language about diversity, inclusion, Southwest's unique character, all of that is baked both into the comp plan and into the Anacostia Waterfront Plan, which is a subset of that is the Southwest Development Plan. So it is baked into these plans. I agree with you. The mayor has been much more honest about how development has taken place. There was a follow-up to the original Anacostia Waterfront Initiative last year, where basically in that document, which her Office of Planning puts out, it says, we've done it all wrong, we've made some mistakes, this development is not pro-family, and it's having racial impacts that we did not anticipate. We need to change, and we will change, and that's what the document says. And so we need the city to really undo their decision with regard to this project.
Now, do we have any idea how long it will take for it to be reviewed by the courts? Hard to say.
I could chime in on that. Basically, so the brief will go in tonight or perhaps in a week. But basically, they got the other side, so the developers have like a month to respond. Then the petitioners will have like a month to reply. And then it will be set for oral argument probably 6 months from now. So this is what I'm saying.
3.5
The
months
power of this legal platform is to buy you all time as a community to put pressure on the elected officials, to demand that their rhetoric match. I mean, Charles Allen could write an amicus brief. He could write a brief that says, I'm in support of these folks because I didn't realize this project has 11 units or 60 units that are affordable studios for people making $75,000 a year, when we should be making family-sized units that are affordable for people making less than $30,000 if we really want an equitable Southwest. And the waterfront has no affordability, none. There's no units in there that are affordable.
No. Oh, you mean on
For people
the
making
wharf?
less than $40,000 a year,
No,
they cannot be at the wharf.
Yeah.
So the
They have
rhetoric
affordable
breaks
units, but
down.
not of that.
The mayor was up in Ward 3 last week, basically condemning Ward 3 for being segregated and exclusive. It's true. It is segregated. It is exclusive. There's a history of redlining and all of that has played out that way. But that was past policy that resulted in what we see now. But here we have a chance with brand new projects to bring that, to actually, bring that rhetoric in line with reality here, and it's not happening. And how many more projects is this going to? Union Market, I've been talking about because I was involved with those. 6,000 new residential units there, 1,000 new hotel rooms. Guess how many affordable family-sized units that the Mayor's Office of Planning brokered out of that giveaway of all the air rights to get 6,000 new units, where they went from 40-foot tall buildings to 120-foot tall buildings. Guess how many out of 6,000 new approved
6,000.
units?
Wow.
How many affordable family-sized units?
I'd say 0.
10.
Okay.
So it's just like you can't say, hey, Ward 3, you're segregated and exclusive, we're condemning you, but then have your Office of Planning approve projects that give us a situation where it's going to be an exclusive segregated community. It's just not, so we have to use these legal platforms to challenge the elected officials. And the hard work is, submitting a brief that is real, that's based on facts, that's based on these plans, the rhetoric in the plans, so the court just doesn't throw it out. But in that time where the courts are reviewing it, it's important that the folks put pressure on the officials to say, live up to your rhetoric, because it's not happening in this project. It's not happening. I mean, there's the one right on the straight back on this corner.
Elliot.
The Elliott. There is not one affordable unit in here. There's not one affordable unit in here. So it's like, well, what is this all about then? Why did we give away all this land? How does this help us meet our public goals of an equitable, inclusive community?
I was just talking, I'm not just saying this for the microphone, but I was actually just talking to a couple who lives in the Elliott, and they're like, we want to grow a family. They're in their 30s, a very nice couple, my friends, but they said we can't afford a 2-bedroom in the Elliott. Why is that? The reason is because we don't build 2 bedrooms, so the 2 bedrooms that that do exist are out of the price range for just middle-class families, middle-class couples just trying to, make their way up in the world. I mean, this is a serious problem. To me, if you are pro-family, if you are pro-health, if you are pro-diversity, this is the kind of thing where you take a second look at this development and really think twice about what we've done with public land. They got $20 for these huge lots, and they're giving us predominantly single-person housing market rate.
So if you guys end up winning the appeal, the next step would be to get more of the community involved to then try to force the developer to not do the community center and get more affordable housing, and then maybe just in general push them to get more affordable housing in both of these developments going forward.
Well, also the conditions under which their project was approved, we're talking about 12 years of delays, as Pam had mentioned before. So when you talk about what the end goal or what our big ask would be, it's go back to the drawing board, because the dynamics of this has changed. When this was done, or this was approved, there was no wharf, there was no Nats Park, there was no Audi Field. That's just 3 examples. So when you talk about what needs to be done, let's go back to the drawing board, get a new traffic study, for example. Tell us about, what the dynamics of the neighborhood are now, and then go forward on approving a different project that would be more equitable and sustainable for everyone in Southwest, not just people moving here for work or don't want to start a family.
That can be the ask of Charles Allen. File a brief that says that. You know what I'm saying? Because he's a lawyer. He's a legislator.
Bit of a wet cold.
He can file a brief.
The neighborhood has changed
I
so
know.
dramatically in just the
We're
last
going.
5 years.
Right.
That to be using studies from 10, 15 years ago as your basis for decisions.
No other industry would you do that.
Yeah.
Right. If your doctor came in and said, I had this medicine from 15 years ago, we're going to use it, you would run like the hell out of that. You would know.
No, give me the new stuff. Yeah. The neighborhood's different, where it was when this project started 12 years ago.
So I know it's 6:30. I don't want to, and the weather's cold.
It's getting colder.
Yeah.
It's getting colder.
We do have a group of people that are taking action. So if you're interested in joining that group and putting, more pressure on elected officials, just let us know. We can loop you in. So.
Okay, what do you want us to do? Right, Charles out.
Yeah. Well.
Charles,
yeah.
right,
Charles,
Yes,
the mayor.
please do.